video, and chat. Next slide, please. So the purpose of tonight's meeting is that this is the second of 2 public meetings to gather input and collect comments on the tentatively selected plan for the Alawai Flood Risk Management General Reevaluation Report. As I just said, this meeting will be recorded, including information provided in the chat function. Verbal input received this evening will be transcribed for inclusion in the final report and on the project's website. Your written input in the chat will also be included in the final report and website if you would like to provide written input via that form. Next slide, please. So this is our order of events for this evening. We will begin by having some opening remarks by the commander of the Honolulu District, Lieutenant Colonel Ryan Peavy. Over to you, sir.
Okay, thanks, Rhiannon. Can you hear me? Okay.
Loud and clear, sir.
Aloha and good evening. First, I just want to thank the mayor and his team, especially with the Department of Design and Construction. City has been a great project sponsor, and your support throughout this critical project and process has been paramount. Aloha, my name is Lieutenant Colonel Ryan Peavy. I'm the commander of the Honolulu District, as Rhiannon said. First, I'd like to say mahalo to the community for staying engaged with us throughout this process, for your time this evening, also for your interest in providing input on the tentatively selected plan. The Alawai watershed community has been absolutely invaluable in helping shape this plan and working through real solutions that focus on building a safer and more resilient community. I can't say this enough about the community, so thank you. Planning or the study, similar to kind of this one, there's been some studies in the past. I know one was in 2017 and other studies that weren't implemented. But with the criticality or the critical need for flood risk mitigation in the Alawai watershed area, Congress provided funding for the current study you see today, which started in 2019, which helps leverage federal support and in conjunction with our partners in the city and county of Honolulu. And most importantly, has allowed all of us to kind of take a fresh look at the flooding problems and come up with a solution that works best for Honolulu. One of the strengths of the Corps of Engineers is the ability to leverage experience and expertise across a large enterprise of people in this organization. Given the complexities, the beauty of the watershed, which you'll hear from today, led by Dr. Eric Merriam from the Corps of Engineers and the city's director for the Department of Design and Construction, Haku Milas, are here to help present the TSP. You'll hear today, the study team will discuss with you some of the important features of this plan. But please understand this plan is still tentative. Within the process, it's still tentative. We are continually assessing the feasibility, or what we refer to as the viability of the plan, and continually asking these key questions and asking them with you, with the community. What is the best plan that considers the environmental, social, cultural, and economic impacts? The team has been hard at work at answering that question and will continue to do so as the plan undergoes further refinements throughout the rest of this feasibility phase. Your input are important, so please consider to either input now or continue to input if you have. The input period, as mentioned, and you'll see in continuous slides, tonight. They'll end in January 8th in this part for that comment period. Your comments will be made part of the official record and help the study identify items for further analysis to be incorporated into the final plan. Mahalo again for your time and your participation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. We do apologize if you experienced a break in the sound. We apologize for that. Okay, hopefully you can hear me okay at this point. Just a few things to orient you to the WebEx platform that we are using this evening. There is a raise your hand function in the bottom, a little bit right of center in your screen. We're going to be using that function tonight if you would like to raise your hand and give your verbal comment. It's okay if you don't want to provide a verbal comment. You can provide your comments in writing, or if you just want to listen this evening, that's also totally fine. The chat function looks like a little bubble in the very lower right-hand corner of your screen. And so if you want to provide a written comment, then you can provide that there and it will go into the formal record. Also, you might note there is a mute and unmute button. If you're joining from a smartphone or computer and are seeing the screen, if and when your turn comes to give your verbal comment, please note that you will need to unmute your physical phone if you're on one, and also unmute the WebEx application. And with that, next slide, please. So again, the purpose of our meeting tonight is to receive public comments. We want to maximize the chance of hearing every single person who has joined us tonight that would like to give a verbal comment. I will take note that we have 58 participants at this time, and so we will likely need the full time reserved for this public meeting to have everyone be able to give one public comment. And so please honor that. We're going to have you raise your hands and then call upon you in the order in which your hands were raised, giving everyone a chance at least once to be able to comment. And so please don't raise your hand a second time if you've already been able to comment, unless everyone else has already had their opportunity. And please note the study team is in listening mode tonight because we need to give all of the time to the community to provide comments. So the team will be listening, taking notes, and really listening to those comments, and all comments and questions will be compiled and responded to on the study website and also through the final report. Instructions or additional instructions for providing your input will follow a brief presentation here by Dr. Merriam. And please note that our 45-day public comment period, which opened on Black Friday, closes on January 8th. And with that, over to you, Eric.
All right. Aloha and good afternoon. My name is Cindy Oxall, and I am one of the project managers for this study. I'm going to be providing a little bit of background and history on the project and how we got to where we're at in this study. So this slide here shows just a basic background overview of the study history. It actually began back in the study itself began back in 1998, and back then it was focused solely on addressing flood risk in Waikiki and along the Alawai Canal. But following the 2004 Manoa floods, the study was later expanded to include also the upstream portions of the watershed, which also included the Makiki, Manoa, Palolo valleys. So that feasibility study was completed in 2017 and then authorized and appropriated in 2018. And from there, the study moved into what we call the pre-construction engineering and design phase, where the study team was provided the opportunity to collect additional data, update the models, and also conduct additional analysis. And so it was really at that point that it was determined that modifications were going to be needed in order for that recommended system to function at the same level of performance as that which was authorized in that 2017 feasibility study. And so that study, the 2017 recommended system, was specific to the 1% annual exceedance probability event, otherwise known as the 100-year storm. And so all of those technical updates were summarized in that 2020 engineering documentation report. Then in 2021, a validation study was initiated so the team could conduct further analysis on the cost, economics, and environmental impacts of those modifications that were being recommended in that engineering documentation report. At that point, it was determined that those modifications simply were not economically justifiable. And so rather than completely terminating the study and understanding the need and risk that this community faces, a general reevaluation study was approved in 2021. And so this GR study, as we call it, it allows the project team to find a cost-effective project that maximizes benefits to the community and the economy, but also it's not tied to any specific authority level or flood event. All right, next slide, please. Okay, so the map on the right, it shows an overview of the study area, which is the Alawai watershed, which, as mentioned earlier, it includes the Makiki, Manoa, and Palolo streams, and they all drain into the Alawai Canal. The canal itself is a man-made feature that was constructed in the 1920s to drain the wetlands. Its original design was never intended for flood control. And so for this reason, the canal has overtopped multiple times in the past. I mean, just last year, we were walking along the canal during king tides and on the Mauka side of the canal, and we could see portions of that flood wall overtopped. But also, in this watershed, there's also other areas that have also experienced flooding. So I think those Manoa residents from that 2004 flood, they can attest to that, as well as the 2006 40 days of nonstop rain that really caused widespread flooding throughout the watershed. And then it is, you know, I guess it's important to note here that this GR study, it's funded by the 2018 Emergency Supplemental Appropriations, and so that really allows the team to evaluate and mitigate for flooding resulting from riverine flooding. And so that's really the focus of this study. And so through our initial scoping meetings with the community, as well as our assessment through previous efforts, we've identified 3 primary study objectives. And so one is to reduce life and safety risks. The second is to reduce economic damages associated with inundation of structures. And then the third is to reduce impacts to commerce and tourism. And so these study objectives are the building blocks to our planning process. So in other words, these alternative plans that will be presented here today, those plans were developed to meet these 3 study objectives. All right, next slide, please. All right, so on this slide, we summarize the process that this study team has completed to date. It's the steps that we've taken in order to get to the point where we're at in selecting a tentative plan. We first collaborated with the community in identifying the problems and opportunities related to flood risk in this watershed. The team also assessed previous studies and conducted site visits. We updated the models, and it's important to note here that our models incorporate things like climate change and sea level rise in order to project future flooding. We use that information to develop our alternative plans. Then the next part, you know, the community really played a big part in this, you know, through several workshops, through crowdsourced reporter. This community here helped to develop over 224 management measures, which were then formed into alternative plans. We held several workshops along the way in April, July, and December to talk about those management measures, the initial array of alternatives, the final array of alternatives. And then after we had those alternative plans, we evaluate and compare them against each other. And we look at economic benefits, life safety risk, environmental impacts, effects on environmental justice. And then we had a workshop in April of 2023 to discuss this evaluation process as well as the prospective plan. And so information about the previous meetings can be found on the project website listed here. And in a few slides, there's also going to be some QR codes that will help direct you to that study website. But today's presentation is going to focus on what that tentatively selected plan is.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Cindy. And so I'll pick it up from here. So the map that you see here and the associated video demonstrates the flood pattern for a flood event with a 2% annual exceedance probability or a 2% chance of occurring in any given year. You can see in the map that floodwaters, we start up in Manoa Valley, jump the bank at Woodlawn Bridge and flow down through the University of Hawaii and also the communities adjacent to it. We also have flooding that emanates from the Manoa-Palolo Canal, as well as along the Alawai Canal. So it's important to keep this flood pattern in mind as I kind of talk about the alternatives that we assessed, because again, we developed these alternatives to reduce flooding resulting from those flood patterns. So Cindy, just a minute ago, mentioned the 224 management measures that we looked at. We distilled those 224 measures down into an initial array of 9 alternatives. The reasons for the, screening of each of those individual management measures or actions that we can take at any given location can be found in the management measure tracker, which is located on the study website. I'll also note that the plan formulation process can be kind of looked at and digested through the plan formulation tracker as well, which is also available on the study website. So if we take a look at the 9 alternatives that we had initially put together, we always look at the no action alternative. So that's an alternative if we do nothing. The second alternative was a storage alternative. And so this alternative attempted to maximize the storage of floodwaters in existing green space, like the Alawai Golf Course, as well as the Manoa Valley District Park and the Makiki District Park. Alternative 2A was an alternative that attempted to modify conveyance utilizing existing infrastructure, things like upsizing existing storm drainage systems. Alternative 2B was to modify conveyance through the use of flood walls. Alternative 2C was to modify conveyance through the use of a second outlet. When the Alawai Canal was initially designed, there was a secondary outlet on the eastern portion of the canal, and so we wanted to look at that. Alternative 3 was to utilize tunnels, like those SWIFT tunnels, to basically divert water from the upper watershed directly out into the ocean, completely avoiding the more populated areas in the watershed. Alternative 4 was utilizing natural and nature-based measures, things like reforestation of the upper watershed, construction of wetlands and existing green spaces to mitigate flows. Alternative 5 was a hybrid alternative, we called it. So this is an alternative where we attempted to both modify conveyance and store water, understanding that there might be an approach that utilized both of those techniques to reduce flood risk throughout the watershed most effectively. And then alternative 6 was a non-structural plan. And when we say non-structural, we're talking about things like elevation of homes and floodproofing of businesses. So, waterproof membranes on walls, waterproof doors, et cetera. So at the end of the day, what we do is we take all of the information that we gather from our modeling, our economic models, our flood models, and we take a look at how effective each of these alternatives is at meeting our 3 objectives, as Cindy just mentioned. So reduction in life safety risk, reduction in economic damages, and reduction in impacts to commerce and tourism. And so when we look at all of these things together, alternative 5, the hybrid alternative, came out to be what we called the prospective plan, again, which we presented back in April of this year. So the prospective plan turned into what we're calling the tentatively selected plan. And so this is the plan that is presented in the draft report, which we're seeking comment on right now. There are a number of features that are included in this tentatively selected plan. These features can be broken down into what we call structural features, or features that modify kind of the extent and pattern of flooding, or non-structural features like elevation and floodproofing that just modify the consequences of that flooding. So the structural features include a flood wall at Woodlawn Drive to prevent waters from jumping the bank at the Woodlawn Bridge and flowing down through the University of Hawaii. It also incorporates a flood wall at the confluence of the Manoa Stream and the Palolo Stream. Again, this is to mitigate flooding in the adjacent community, but also to reduce the effect of the inclusion of the Woodlawn flood wall. So if we construct the Woodlawn flood wall upstream, there's additional water that's being retained into the channel that we also must address further downstream. Moving downstream from there, we have flood walls on both sides of the Manoa-Palolo Canal as well as the Alawai Canal. And then finally, we have a detention basin at the Alawai Golf Course. This detention basin consists of both earthen berms as well as flood walls. The non-structural features that are currently incorporated into the tentatively selected plan are, again, elevation of residential structures, so elevating the first floor so that it's above the flood elevation. floodproofing of non-residential structures. So again, things like waterproof membranes on walls and waterproof doors to prevent floodwaters from inundating that structure and causing damage. And then finally, the third is acquisition and relocation. So physically removing folks out of the floodplain. I'm going to talk about each of these in a little bit more detail. So if we focus on the Woodlawn Drive floodwall feature, it is currently assumed to be 6 feet tall. It's on the right descending bank as you look downstream, and it incorporates a road closure at Woodlawn Drive. It's important to note that the road closure would only be closed during flood events when that road is otherwise impassable. If we move downstream again to the Quali Road floodwall, or the floodwall right at the confluence of the Manoa and Palolo streams, again, it is also assumed to be 6 feet in height. It's on the left descending bank of Manoa and the right descending bank of Palolo. There are additional road closures here, one at Kawali Road, and then the other at the pedestrian bridge just upstream. And again, these road closures would be closed only during flood events. And then finally, when we're thinking about structural features, we take a look at the entire Alawai Canal, Manoa-Palolo Canal area. So if we focus only on the flood walls that are around the Manoa-Palolo Canal and the Alawai Canal, all of these flood walls are assumed to be 6 feet tall. I think there was some confusion or misunderstanding at last night's public meeting in that these might be taller. Right now, they are all assumed to be 6 feet tall, and we'll look at that again in a moment as we look at the renderings on the next slide. With respect to this flood wall, there are road closures at King Street, Kapiolani Boulevard, State Street, Kalakaua Avenue, and Macaulay Street. Again, these flood walls would only be closed during flood events, when again, these roads would otherwise be impassable. We do incorporate 4 canoe closures. Again, it's important to note that on this map, basically the green triangles that you're seeing only represent locations. The size of those canoe closures will ultimately be determined later on and take into consideration things like number of canoes, overall usage patterns and things like that. Finally, as we'll see on the next slide, the flood wall incorporates an elevated walkway so that we can minimize the impacts to the view shed, as well as maximize individuals' ability to enjoy and visualize the Alawai Canal as they're recreating along the canal. It also incorporates a volcanic rock facade. So the Alawai Golf Course detention feature, as I mentioned earlier, consists of both earthen levees and flood walls. And I think this is where some of the confusion last night came in. So the flood wall and the earthen berms around only the detention basin are between 6 and 9 feet in height. We had to increase the height of the berms and flood walls of only the Alawai Golf Course detention feature in order to maximize the amount of water that we can retain in that feature to minimize the peak flows entering or passing through the Alawai Canal. So again, along the flood wall, along the canal itself, these are 6 feet high, assumed to be 6 feet high right now, and only the Alawai Golf Course detention feature incorporates height greater than 6 feet. It's important to note that the golf course would remain operational and only be closed during periods in which it's being utilized as a detention feature. So these renderings were released in the press release associated with the release of the draft report for concurrent review, or for public review. So what we're looking at here is the view of this feature as would be seen by someone of average height. So they're walking along an elevated walkway. The walkway is 3 feet off of the road, and you can see that the flood wall to their left is 3 feet above the elevated walkway. So the wall that you're seeing is only 3 feet tall. Again, you can see that they can see over and visualize the water, the canal, those recreating within the canal, as well as the diamond head, which is directly in front of them. A couple other things to note here, the volcanic rock facade associated with the flood wall to the left, as well as the American Disability Act accessibility ramp that's shown to the right. I'll note that the rendering incorporates a bike path, so you can see a biker biking along the path just to the right or just adjacent to the elevated walkway. It's important to note that we incorporated that feature so that it's aligned with the Complete Streets project associated with the city and county. However, decisions made in the future with respect to the appropriateness of that bike lane or a parking lane or another driving lane can be made. Our elevated walkway and flood wall would not impact those future decisions. So this is just another view of the flood wall feature, again, showing the elevated walkway, the 3-foot flood wall to there, adjacent to the walkway, the volcanic facade, as well as the accessibility ramps and so forth. So those are the structural features. Again, those features that modify the pattern of flooding. As I mentioned earlier, we also are incorporating non-structural features like elevation of residential structures, like in the picture shown to the right from the Associated Press, flood-proofing of non-residential structures, as well as potential acquisition and relocation. These features are incorporated to ensure that the plan is either positive or neutral. So when we implement a plan, we can essentially do no harm. We cannot make things worse for those individuals that should be benefiting from it. And so we would incorporate these features, again, to ensure that the effect is either positive or neutral. I'll note that the exact locations of these features will continue to evolve as we move forward and we update the modeling with existing or with future data that we might obtain during the design process. So if we look at how the project, I'll say, performs, we're showing two maps here. The map on the left of the screen shows what we call the feature without project condition for, again, the event with a 2% chance of occurring in any given year, or a 1 in 50 chance of occurring in any given year. So this is if we do nothing, if there is no federal action. And as Cindy alluded to earlier, this flood pattern, these flood maps incorporate things like sea level rise directly into them. So when we predict future flooding, we're taking those things into consideration. The map on the right shows what we call the future with project condition if the tentatively selected plan is implemented. And so just a few things to highlight in this map. We are preventing flooding from jumping at the bank at Woodlawn Bridge and flooding down through the University of Hawaii. We're also preventing flooding both Mauka of the golf course, as well as in those areas within Macaulay Mo'ili'ili directly across from that. I'll note, you can also see that there's no flood inundation in the area of Waikiki. What I really want to highlight here, though, is that in the Macaulay Mo'ili'ili area, if we remember back to the video that I showed originally, that area gets essentially flooded from 4 separate ways. First, from Manoa, coming down through the University of Hawaii. Second, along the Manoa-Palolo Canal. Third, along the Alawai Canal. And then finally, along the Makiki Stream. So we were unable to identify any measures that we could implement or we could justify within Makiki. And so all of the flooding that you're seeing within the Macaulay Mo'ili'ili area, even though there is still some inundation, is only coming from one source instead of 4. And so even though there is still some inundation in that area, you can see that the extent of that inundation is reduced, but also the depth of that flooding will also be reduced, again, because it's only coming from one source. And so that's extremely important to highlight. This plan, again, we identified and developed to reduce flood or to manage flood risk throughout the entire watershed. So if we take a look at the costs in the press release and in the draft report, as was noted yesterday, the cost is just over $1 billion, 1.07. If we consider, and that's if we were to construct it today, if we consider an interest during the construction time and look at how we annualize that over the 50-year period at which we conduct our economic analysis, this comes out to an average annual cost of about $40 million. It's important to put that number in context with respect to the benefits that we expect. So we expect an average annual benefit of about $58 million. So again, we're expecting more benefits than costs. So again, our benefit cost ratio is above 1, meaning that it's 1.4, meaning that for every dollar of investment, we receive $1.4 of return. Now, it's also important to consider those numbers within the context of the damages that we would expect if we did nothing. So if you remember the previous slide, the map on the left. If we do nothing, we're expecting almost $101 million in average annual damages, again, annualized over the life of the 50-year analysis period. And so essentially, we are getting, with about $58 million in average annual benefit, we're getting about, or we're reducing about 60% of the expected damages that, we would see if we did nothing. And so I think it's important to think about, we are expecting a lot of benefit with these features. So I want to talk a little bit about what follows. So right now, the draft report is out for concurrent review. It's out for public review. So you all have the 45-day public comment period to provide comments. But while you are providing comments, we are also conducting our agency technical review, an independent external peer review, and a policy and legal compliance review, at the same time. And so all of these comments will be combined together. So we'll get the public comments, we provide your comments to those other reviewers, and then we synthesize all of those comments, ultimately updating the final report in whatever way we need to ensure that we're adequately addressing these comments. All of the comments that are provided will be incorporated into the final report, and we will hold meetings associated with the release of the final report in the 30-day comment period associated with it. Again, as Rhiannon alluded to earlier, the technical team is purely in listening mode tonight. And again, that's so that we can adequately hear and digest your comments and questions, but also it's so that we can take those comments back and ensure that we're talking with our entire team to provide the most accurate and updated answers as possible. But also, those answers may change from tonight to a couple of weeks from now when we also get those agency technical or independent external peer review comments, right? We might respond differently based on how they are synthesized with those other comments. And so again, we're in listening mode tonight. I don't want you to take that as a lack of willingness to respond. Ultimately, we will respond to all comments just in the final report. So after the final report is updated, it will be formalized in what we call a chief's report that's signed by the Chief of Engineers for the Army Corps of Engineers that gets sent to Congress for subsequent authorization for construction and then funding or appropriation for construction. And so one of my last slides here is just to put all of the process into context. So at the very beginning of the presentation, Cindy went over the 4 gray arrows at the top. So that is essentially how we got to today, how we arrived at the tentatively selected plan and the draft report. So the red line kind of denotes where we are. You'll see that even after today, we will undergo additional design where we optimize the plan, the tentatively selected plan, and change it in however way we need to based off of your comments and those of the agency and technical reviews. Ultimately, again, we will have the chief's report that goes to Congress. At that point, the level of design is about 20 to 30%. And so even after we have the chief's report and once it gets authorized and funded by Congress, we undergo an additional design portion that takes us from that 30% design ultimately to 100% design as it gets constructed. And so, again, I just kind of want to highlight where we are in this process and that the comments that we received tonight absolutely will be incorporated with the comments of the other reviews that are being undertaken currently, ultimately resulting in the chief's report and then moving forward through design and construction. So, Rhiannon, this is where I pass it back to you.
Thank you very much, Eric. Okay, so again, as you've already started to do, you can provide written comments into the chat function. If you would like to give a verbal comment this evening, we want to make sure everyone has an opportunity once at least to do that. So please use the raise your hand function that I showed earlier, which is in the bottom center right of your screen. It looks like a hand going like this, and we will call on you in the order that the hands are put up. If you are joining over the phone, again, just a reminder, if you're strictly on the phone, you will need to make sure that your physical phone is unmuted and that you press *6 when it's your turn to speak and give your verbal comment to unmute yourself so that everyone can hear you. When called upon to make your comment, please clearly state your name. If you are representing an organization, then please state your organization. Begin speaking, and please speak as clearly as you can so that we can get everything clearly on the transcript. And please target 3 minutes per comment to be mindful of others. We do have almost 70 people now who have joined, who potentially all would like to give one comment. So we want to make sure everyone has that opportunity. Next slide, please. Okay, so to help us out to know how we're doing on the 3 minutes for each person as they're giving their comment, we will have a timer bar that shows up just to kind of help guide you with where you are. The green bar indicates that your time has started. The yellow bar indicates that you're in your 2nd minute of speaking, and the red bar counts down through your 3rd minute of your comment period. When you reach that 3rd minute, the end of that, if you could please finish your thought and then yield the floor to the next commenter, we would greatly appreciate that. Again, we want to be respectful and give everyone an opportunity to speak. And of course, if you have more to say than the 3 minutes allows, we encourage you please to submit written comments to us via our webpage or tonight via the chat function. Okay, so with that, we will begin our public input session. And if you don't want to use the chat or verbal input, you can also scan this QR code with your smartphone, and there will be a fill-in form for your comment online if you prefer to do it that way. And with that, I'm going to go to my participant list where I can see hands raised, and I'm going to call on the first person. I'm going to do my absolute best to pronounce your name correctly. And if I don't do it exactly right, I apologize in advance. So the first person that I see is Shar Ige. Would you like to come to mute? Hello.
Thank you. Hello, this is the first time I saw your virtual session was the June session, and I think your project is very applicable to me. I live along the Manoa Palolo Canal between Lulalilo Highway and Koali Road. I live in a building that sits below the Koali Road level. So we could be flooded by very fast water because we're just about where the confluence is as shown on slide 11. I've sent email to alawai@honolulu.gov May 15, June 17th, and through Representative Garrett, and was told that my emails and pics were forwarded to the Planning and Environmental Branch of the USACE. And I don't see our building having flood walls, so I really like to have flood walls incorporated in the plan because we're below Koali Road, so we could really get flooded, and it's a danger to the lives here. I know there is a 2027 start date, and I really wish that you'd include protection for us. Thank you.
Mahalo for your comment. Okay, we'll go to the second person that I see with their hand raised, and that is Mike Elhoff. Mike, if you could please unmute yourself and provide your comment.
Hey, everybody. So it's a listening session. So my comments are mostly for the community. And it's my opinion that the Army Corps has not listened, that they've shifted everything as per Sydney's comment into the not effective column, with the exception of the golf course detention basin. That was all along logical, and it was integrated into the Army Corps' plan. But the fact is that sea level rise, groundwater inundation will flood everybody surrounding the watershed in the low-lying areas. And this raising the walls is going to raise the canal elevation. And these flap gates are going to keep that water from flooding the surrounding areas. But the drawing, if you show that map to the public on the TV, they'll see, wow, it's not really solving our flood problem. So and then if it rains in Waikiki, when there's a storm event in the Mauka, that rain can't go anywhere because the flap gates are all closed and the water elevation is raised. So it's flawed. The canal has to be pumped down. We got groundwater, we got Mauka flooding. We got to deal with both. And the only way to do that is to use the canal as a drainage and not as a storage at a higher water elevation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mike. Okay, we can go on to the next person. I see Miss Ellen Watson's hand up. Ellen, if you'd like to unmute yourself and give your verbal comment. Thank you.
Thank you. I like the swift tunneling plan that OceanNet came up with. And it solves not only the 5-year rainstorm or the 20-year rainstorm, but it solves a 100-year rainstorm because it takes the water directly to the ocean. It does not involve any flood walls. And it is not $1 billion. Their plan was $262 million. And I think you should embrace that plan because the community supported it. I think you also need to remove the debris and the albesias and do ecosystem restoration, which during the course of the Army Corps' working sessions or WebEx sessions, you've just summarily dismissed. And that is what the community supports. And the community does not support flood walls, and it does not support a $1 billion project. And the city's portion is what, 376 million for the construction? And it'll cost the city $359,000 a year to maintain the walls that you build? So the answer is no. And you people have not been listening, and the community has been engaged in trying, and you've just dismissed everything, and you come up with your pouring concrete walls in and plugging storm drains and closing 5 streets when it rains, and it's not okay. So the answer really from the community overall to your plan is going to be no. And then, we'll be in touch with Washington about that and our legislative leaders about it because it's not okay.
Okay, thank you very much, Ellen. Going to look and see if we have another hand raised. We do have time for the next comment. I see Daisy Marai. Daisy, would you like to come off mute and give your comment?
Hi, Rihanna and Eric, etc. Thank you for last night's presentation. I noticed that some of these pictures, as I mentioned, shows what a city's complete street project is for Alawai Boulevard. Now, the other thing is, don't forget, the Mirror also wants to have an Alawai Bridge running across where the curving, the last picture showed where the curving is. That's where the Alawai Bridge is going to be at Kalaimoku and right across ends at Alawai Park. Don't forget, you also have their Honolulu City project. Now, my question is, are these projects also incorporated in the Army Corps of Engineers project, or is it completely from the city? The other thing is never mentioned, everything has to be cleared from the top to clear the bottom. So otherwise you will have no good drainage. And nothing was mentioned regarding should a tsunami happen in Hawaii. According to city's Peter Hirai, you have to have a 9-point plus earthquake from the Aleutian Islands to have a tsunami affect the islands of Hawaii. Now, should that happen and you have flooding from the top and things are all plugged up, what happens? What happens to the walls? Would they be able to withstand such force? What happens to people that are caught in that area? The city thinks that the Alawai Bridge is to be an evacuation, which the city emergency management says go up the 4th floor and above in a reinforced building, which should be a better solution. There are a lot of smart solutions, but you're not attacking the problem itself. You're just glamorizing projects that you want to do and not take care of the exact problem that can be remedied, and it will not cost $1 billion. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Daisy. Okay, we are able to take the next verbal comment. If you'd like to raise your hand so that it shows up for me in our participant list, then I can call on you. Okay, I see Michelle Matson. Michelle, would you like to come off mute and give your comment, please?
Thank you so much. I'm Michelle Matson, the Planning and Zoning Committee Chair for the Diamond Head Kapalua St. Louis Heights Neighborhood Board, Community District Board, and President of the Oahu Island Parks Conservancy and the Diamond Head State Monument Foundation, testifying individually. In contrast to the larger public interest, there are two highly detrimental proposed projects garnering huge amounts of federal funds and local taxpayer coffer dollars that will absolutely destroy the remaining Hawaiian sense of place and the historic visual quality and integrity of the Alawai Canal and its historic promenade, with massive structural hardscapes, both very long and high, punctuated with behemoth bridge footings, with the historic promenade's trees uprooted and the green space stripped bare. Yet the significant negative cumulative impacts of these simultaneous undertakings together have been ignored, relating to both the proposed 20-foot wide so-called pedestrian bridge and the proposed 6 to 9 foot faux rock veneer walls along the length of the historic canal. Instead, the attention should be on watching what is in front of Waikiki in the form of the inevitable 25-year sea level rise, instead of a potential 50, 100, 1,000-year flood. Equally important are the highest and best watershed management practices, including efficient, effective, and regularly scheduled stream and culvert cleaning, invasive plant species control, and using the protected and well-suited Alawai Golf Course to serve as the retention basin for periodic flooding as and when needed. Additionally, the National Historic Preservation Act Section 106 Programmatic Agreement executed for the previous iteration of this project has expired. It was executed in November 2016 for a term of 7 years and expired last month. So the Army Corps will need to reinitiate the Section 106 compliance and cannot complete the NEPA process until that is complete. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your comment, Michelle. Okay, we are able to take the next verbal comment. If the next person would like to raise their hand, they're using the button in the bottom center right, I can call on you. Let's see, for now, I am not seeing any hands raised in the participant list other than Mike Elhoff, but I believe he's spoken before. Okay, now I see Miss Laura Ruby. Laura, would you like to give your verbal comment? If you can come off mute. We are not hearing you yet, Laura. Make sure you unmute on the WebEx as well as.
I'm looking for my photo that I want to show, and I don't see it at this moment. So I'll come back again for that one. But right now, I'll just, if I can say something, I did say last night too. The Army Corps of Engineer officer used language that is exactly appropriate for a full EIS. But what they have seriously obscured is something called a draft supplemental EIS, which is not an EIS. An EIS will address all of our needs for the community, for the cultural, for the historical, for the social interaction of all of us in the community. We want to have our Hawaii quality of life maintained, and we want to think about all the ways in which that is the most satisfying for all of us, given the current situation. I have also said that as a person who does large public sculptures, that the all participants, that is viewers or people creating them, should look at this site and know and understand the site for all its dimensions. They should also know all about the human scale and how you walk up and around and interact with it. None of those are at all accounted for with these very massive walls. The proposal, when I find my image and I share it with you, I will show you what, and I'll describe it right now. It is just downstream of the McCully Bridge are these beautiful sort of arched railings, if you want to call them that, made out of native stone. They are now open. Their arches are open, but are very easily closed through. They're about 30 inches to 3 feet tall, and they are fine and sufficient for anything along the Mackay side of the Alawai Canal, and they will look nice. We do not want anything called faux glued on rock, fake rock, I should say. We just want them to be something that's nice. No raised walking area, no blocking of the cars and the pedestrians at the Alawai street level. So thank you very much. I will try to find the image and I will get back to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Laura. Okay, we are able to take the next comment from whoever wants to give a verbal comment who has not gone so far. Please raise your hand using the raise your hand function, and then I will call on you. And if you are on the phone only and unable to see the WebEx, but you would like to give a comment and are unable to raise your hand, I can also call on you right now. So if we have anyone who is only on the phone, I don't see a hand raised in the virtual WebEx right now. If you would like to come off mute using *6 and ensuring that your phone itself is unmuted, and just say, I would like to give a comment, and then I can call on anyone that's calling on just the phone.
Hi, I would like to make a comment, please.
Thank you, sir. Can you state your name and if you're with an organization, your organization?
Hi, my name is Brad Cole. I don't represent an organization.
Okay, thank you, Brad. Please give your comment.
Thank you. Yes, I read the draft report with the 7 different options, and I was happy to see that the injection wells were discarded this time. I think that's a step in the right direction. I would have liked to have seen more consideration given to a natural second outlet. I thought that was given short shrift. I agree that the diversion of the Pololo and Manoa streams would probably be expensive, difficult, and contentious. But I do think that a sea level second outlet that's only half a mile long as opposed to 2 miles long down the Alawai Canal could save money and be a more natural restoration of a more natural circulation that would lead to cleaner water and better outcomes. That's it.
Thank you very much, sir. We appreciate your comment. Okay, is there anyone else either in the WebEx or on the telephone that would like to give a verbal comment? I do see someone who's off of mute that's on an 808 phone number that ends in 12. If you would like to give a comment, please
is
state
that
your
still
name.
me?
Oh, I think, yes,
that,
it is still you. Yes, if you
yes,
wouldn't mind muting.
Okay, how do I do that?
You can just mute on your phone that you're on. Thank you, sir. Okay, I see a lot of comments coming in written in the chat, so we thank you very much for that. We're here and happy to take any other verbal comments from anyone who has not had a chance yet to speak. And so far, I'm not seeing any other hands raised. And our virtual participants, we do still have about 66 participants right now. I think we've heard from about 7 so far. Everyone can have an opportunity if you choose. And again, if you're on just the phone and you're unable to see our WebEx, you will need to *6 and unmute your phone to come off of mute and let us know that you would like to give a comment. See lots of comments in the chat. Thank you, everybody, for those written comments. We will remain on the line while we have any participants, to hear anyone who may have joined late or who would like to say something. Oh, I see Daisy has her hand up again. Daisy, is there something else that you would like to add?
Yes, thank you. I noticed in the drawing, the sidewalks are much wider and there's no green spaces. Now, if you have all concrete or asphalt, etc., it's going to be very hot to walk along there. Even if you sit on the wall, walking on asphalt is not good. Runners will not like that. And people, even dogs or other animals, try walking on a very hot concrete sidewalk. That needs to have a lot of landscaping. We are missing that from the plan of the sidewalk area because that helps to cool the area and much more pleasing than to just see just concrete. If you need to make concrete, make it a little bit less wider and make it more attractive with some kind of decorative design or something that, because the tourists will be walking there. It's not only that, it's the local people that use there. So you need to think about using too much concrete because Hawaii does not have that much. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Daisy. I do see another hand up from Laura Ruby again. Laura, did you have something to add?
Yes, I'm going to share the screen now, I believe. That I can, oops, oh, what's that? Are you seeing what I'm seeing? Are you seeing the share application? There's something strange about the WebEx. Are you able to see my screen sharing right now?
Yeah, we're seeing a photo, Laura, but it's very, very small. So just if you can make it bigger.
Bigger?
That's better.
Okay. Okay, what I'd like to say is, see how graceful this looks? Remember, the Alawai Canal and the Alawai Promenade that extends all the way, the whole canal on the Makai side is historical. And if there's anything that's going to be changed about it at all with these massive flood walls and raised walk space or whatever, you have to go through the section 106 or the section 6E. These are historical documents that have to be filed and have to be reviewed by SHPD and probably the federal government also. Look at this very gracious railing, if you want to call it that. And you can imagine it right now, it's open. This begins downstream of the Macaulay Bridge. But there's no reason why this 3-foot high railing, which is very nice to sit on, by the way, should not be employed at or created at the all the rest of the Makai side of the Alawai Canal, and just let it go at that with the filled in arches, but with the architectural detailing that shows that the arches are there. I might add too, and I mentioned this last night too, I, as a co-coordinator of the Mo'ili'ili Japanese Cemetery, we built a 556-foot wall with all volunteers and only one mason assisting us, and made out of native stone and then topped with concrete. There's no reason why I can't be a coordinator or a consultant for supervising volunteers or OCCC or any number of, or the Honolulu Community College Apprenticeship Program to work on the wall, to work on this railing at the other end. It does not, it's already, the water flow, as you can see from this image, is below about 3 feet, maybe 4 feet below normal water level. And this would raise it to the 3 feet above, or including the lower level, which would be about 7 feet. There's absolutely no reason why you need to do this massive concrete structure and the massive walkways. So I'd appreciate any comments that you folks have, because I've put this in for all of the many comments that I've done previously, and nobody has responded from the Army Corps of Engineers at all. So I'm really waiting for something that will be doable, beautiful, and will respect our Hawaii sense of place. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Laura. If you could, there we go, Eric, if you wouldn't mind putting back the public comment QR code, thank you. Okay, I now see a hand up by Matt. Matt, would you like to give your verbal comment?
Yeah, thanks, Rhiannon. My name is Matt Rosner. I'm not representing any organizations tonight. I don't live on Oahu. I live on Kauai. I'm a hydrologist and a water resource engineer, so I'm involved in flood mitigation work over there, and I kind of figured I'd join in here to learn and listen. But since I have the opportunity to talk, I just will say something, keep it real brief, because again, I don't know a whole lot about this project or flood control, but I do know from, working in flood mitigation field on Kauai that there are, a lot of common misperceptions in terms of, causes of flooding and potential solutions and what's realistic. So, I put a lot of value into what the Corps is bringing in terms of the proposal here. But I also do see a lot of comments from the community about, the need to address Albizia trees. And, I'm sure you guys have looked into this and know a lot about it, but I just want to say, from my experience on the ground on Kauai, dealing with some very floody rivers over there, that Albizia forests are, causing a lot of issues right now, with debris loading and debris jams and flow bulking. And this problem is only going to become, much worse in the future. So I hope that this plan is, incorporating, some component to address that, or maybe there's some kind of sister, effort to deal with Albizia, but that is, something that should be considered in a comprehensive approach to, managing flooding in this area in the future. So thanks for the opportunity to provide a little input.
Thank you very much, Matt. Appreciate the comment. Okay, we can accept another comment at this time, either from someone who is on the web portion, or also if you are only on your phone, or if you've joined us and missed the instructions, I'm happy to give those again. I do see a hand raised by a participant listed as CARES. Would you like to come off mute and give your comment, please? I have someone listed as CARES. I'm assuming it's an acronym for something. It's in all caps. You have your hand raised, but we cannot hear you yet.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, now we can.
Aloha, Angela Melody Young, testifying on behalf of CARES. Just a comment. There was an agenda item on the DLNR meeting last week for Alawai, like the parking situation, discussing management strategies. I don't know if anybody heard. And sustainability organizations came out to testify, such as Surfrider. So how would today's discussion impact the parking situation?
Okay, thank you. Would you like to form that in the phrase of a comment, or do you just want us to take it down in the record as a question and we can get back with a response on the website?
Okay, it can be a question. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you for that. And please keep an eye on our Q&A section on the webpage for us to get back to you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much for being here, and thank you for your comment. Okay. With that, we can take the next comment. The hand that I see, Mike, I see your hand up again, but let me just make sure we don't have anyone new on the phone. Since you've had a chance before, give me just one moment. So is there anyone that is just on the audio? I see a lot of phone numbers registered that do not look like they're on the web portion. In case you didn't hear before, if you were on the phone, you will need to hit *6 and make sure that your phone is unmuted in order to come off of mute and let us know that you'd like to give a verbal comment. Is there anyone that's just on the phone at this time that would like to give a verbal comment? Okay, with that, Mike, you had your hand up again before. Would you like to add something?
Yeah, can I share a graphic picture?
I think, well, I'm not the host of the web portion of the meeting. Eric, if you're the host, is it okay for him to share something?
Sure. Let me, generally I know Laura was able to do that. Generally, we would just ask you to submit the picture along with a formal comment. But
how did Laura do it? She has special powers.
Well, if it's allowable, there is a share button in the center, but I would say, and I appreciate Laura doing this, the one thing about showing images is if it's not your image or your work, then you just need to cite where it's from, what the source is.
Okay, you guys can see that?
Yes.
Okay, so this is the triple threat. And so Director Mills, this is really where the mayor needs to be advised that the riverine flooding is only 1/3 of the problem. And all of those businesses and residents in Waikiki are not going to be raising the walls, and raising walls means raising water level elevations during this riverine event. So the assumption has to be made that water will only rain in the mountains. It will not rain in these surrounding areas. And that means a very localized rainstorm, Malka. And so if that's the case, then raising the walls, great. It's all going to go out the canal, and there's going to be dry streets all surrounding. Everybody's happy. But that's typically not my experience with rainstorms. And I've been in Waikiki during a major island rainstorm. And so there's nowhere for that water to go when those walls are up. And sea level rise is like ice shelves are breaking off, and we're like pretending there's not going to be sea level rise. So all of these buildings, the ground floor, the Moana Surf Rider, and I'm a marine engineer, and I did a lot of work in Waikiki the first 20 years of my career. So I'm intimately familiar with this watershed, and I lived in Upper Palolo. So and then you got storm surge. So just so everybody's clear, the $1 billion is still handcuffed by the fact that the Army Corps cannot look at sea level. They can say that they're taking into consideration, but they are not addressing sea level rise groundwater inundation itself, which is a reality. They're not addressing storm surge. That was the original handcuff from the original money. Now this whole thing reset, and they're still not looking at it. So Lieutenant Commander, please recognize that the people in this area are going to get flooded, not just from riverine flooding and the walls. So all those comments that came in from all these people I've been watching for months and years, and it's all listening, but no action. It's all disregard, disregard, disregard until we get back to walls. So that's really the problem. I'm going to stop sharing and I'll shut up now. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike.
And, you know, from this point forward, if it's okay, we'll just ask any other items to be shared, just to be sent in with a formal comment. It's hard for me to manage the presentation and moving forward if I don't have control of the screen. So appreciate the comments, but let's just keep them to verbal, but appreciate that, Mike. Over.
Okay, let's see. I do see a hand up. It's from Matt. Matt, I don't know if that's from your previous hand or if you had something else that you would like to add.
Sorry, no, that must have been from my previous.
Okay. All right, no problem. All right, so we are able to take the next verbal comment. If there is anyone who would like to provide one, again, we want to prioritize anyone who's not had the opportunity to speak yet, but would like the opportunity to speak. So if you're on the WebEx, you can use the raise your hand function. If you are on the phone only, and I do still see many people who are on with just a phone number, you can *6 and make sure that your phone is on mute and let us know that you would like to give a comment. Okay. I may approach this from another angle. I want to be respectful of people's time, but we want to make sure we hear everybody. So I may go down the list here and just make sure that you're not having technical trouble and call on you. And if you really want to make a comment, and I've written down those who've been able to speak so far, I will skip over you if I already know for sure that you've spoken. But let's see. So I see a phone number 808 ending in 12. I believe we were able to hear from you, so thank you. I see another phone number that is 808 that ends in 54. If that's you and you would like to give a verbal comment, you could come off mute at this time and let me know. Okay. Hearing none, I'm going to move to the next in my list. There's an 808 number that ends in 36. If that's you and you would like to give a verbal comment, please feel free to come off mute now. Okay, going to move to the next person in the list. I have a phone number 808 ending in 71. If that is you and you would like to give a verbal comment, please *6 and unmute yourself. Okay. The next person I see in the list, who I believe isn't with the team and has not already spoken, is someone registered as Christine. Christine, would you like to come off mute and give a verbal comment? You can feel free to give me a thumbs down. If I call on you and you don't want to give a verbal comment, that's totally fine. You can just hit the thumbs down reaction in the little reaction icon that looks like a smiley face with a plus and let me know. Okay. Let's see. Continuing on with folks we haven't heard from tonight. I see Dolan Eversole. Dolan, would you like to give a verbal comment this evening? If so, you can come off mute. If not, just give me a thumbs down and I will skip over you. Okay, thank you, Dolan. The next person I see in the participant list is Drew. Drew, would you like to give a verbal comment? If so, come off mute. If not, give me a thumbs down. see, I believe we've already heard from Ellen. There is somebody signed on who is registered as FASEK3. Would you like to give a verbal comment? If so, you can come off mute, or if not, give me that thumbs down or let me know. Okay. Hearing none, I'm going to continue. Let's see, Glenn Otagoro, BRM. Would you like to give a verbal comment? If so, you can come off mute. If not, let me know with the thumbs down that you don't want to provide a verbal comment, and I'll skip and go on.
Sure, I'll make a comment. Can you hear
Thank
me?
you, sir. Yes, we can. Thank you.
Okay. I was involved with the 2004 flood. Our area, which is just above Kahaloa Bridge, flooded during October, during the around was that Halloween. Anyway, we had 2 feet of muddy brown water coming into our lot, and which was surprising. We weren't warned by anyone. The city did not tell anyone in our area that there was an impending flood. No one was maintaining the stormwater drainage ditch above our area, and I had to go through. Me and my dad had to go through the neighborhood board to have it cleaned up, since the city did not do anything. Now it's great that the LOI flood control project is doing these things, but what really needs to be done is everybody needs to get involved, not just the Army Corps of Engineers, but the city, the state, and the federal, where they own their properties, need to get involved with this mitigation of the streams, all the way going down to LOI. This idea of having this this humongous billion-dollar project to fix everything is it's a waste of time, because every time I ask for help in my area, I'm told that they can't do anything about it, and I get stuck with my own version of mitigation, which is 12 sandbags on my lot. So I really don't see any purpose in responding to this. I just listen to whatever you folks are planning for, but I don't see any forward-thinking ideas of what to do with the stream areas. I mean, I've suggested widening the stream, but no one wants to talk about it. I suggested using the Manoa District Park as a partial detention basin, but I don't think anyone's really thought much about it. That's why I'm not really making much comments about this project. It's just that it's frustrating that I hear everything that's going on with this project, but I see no forward plans coming in the next, 5, 10, 20 years. I mean, in 40 years, I may not be around. So it's like, I don't know why you're asking us for feedback, because I'm probably not going to be around when it's done. Thank you.
Thank you, Glenn. Appreciate your comments. Okay, I am still not seeing any hands raised, so I'm going to continue down with the list of folks who I'm showing that haven't had a chance to speak. Hector Wong, you're next. I know you've submitted several written comments in the chat. Would you like to give a verbal comment? If so, you can come off mute. If not, you can just give me a thumbs down or say no, and I will continue on my journey down the list.
Actually, I just want to say that this presentation has been awesome. I know it's a very solid project. I've been hearing it since 2009 that I started paddling. And I'm not speaking for my canoe club or for anyone in particular, because I believe as an active paddler, I represent everybody. So I want this to to move forward on both sides of the story to work together. There's a lot that has been said is valid on both sides of the stories. And let's just keep it positive and really let's do something on the last testament from that guy that had to put his own sandbags, and many times myself had to mitigate with the brown water and all the people involved in that. It is yeah, that's all. Good job, guys.
Mahalo, Hector. Appreciate that. Okay, again, I'm not seeing any hands up, so I'm going to continue down the list, just making sure we've gotten everybody. Janelle, oh, I'm sorry. I see a hand up. Haku.
Hi, sorry. There was a question about the Alelo broadcast that had come up. I don't think it's in their archive yet. I don't know much about when it becomes available, but I will talk with our comms team, and hopefully we can have that link put up on the website as soon as it becomes available. Just for your guys' information, for those of you who weren't there last night, there is a recording of that, as I believe. So, thanks.
Okay, thank you for your comment, Haku. Okay, Janelle Denny, you're next in the list. Would you like to give a verbal comment? If so, please come off mute, and if not, feel free to give me a thumbs down, and I will pass over you.
This is Janelle from Councilman Say's office. I'm just listening in. Thank you.
Thank you, Janelle. We appreciate you being here. Okay, the next is Joshua Hekekia, HCZM. Joshua, would you like to give a verbal comment? Or if not, you can just give me a thumbs down from the reactions and I'll pass along. Okay, thank you very much. Next in the list, I see Justin Gu. Justin, would you like to give a comment? If not, you can just give us a thumbs down. Okay, hearing none, I'm going to keep going. The next person I see is Kapua. Kapua, would you like to give a verbal comment? If so, come off mute, and if not, okay. Okay, Kapua, just put your hand up when you're ready and I'll come back to you. Does that sound good? Okay. Mahalo. Okay, the next name that I see is Ken. Ken, would you like to give a verbal comment? If not, you can give me a thumbs down. Okay, thank you, Ken. I know Laura has spoken a couple of times, so I'm going to go on to the next name, which is Lori Anderson. Lori, would you like to provide a verbal comment? If so, you can come off mute. If not, give me a thumbs down and I'll keep going. Okay, thank you, Lori. Marcia Kimball. Marcia, would you like to give a verbal comment? Okay, thank you. The next name I see is Mark Williams. Mark, would you like to give a verbal comment? Okay, thank you for letting me know. I believe we've already heard from Matt without a last name. Matthew Gonzer, would you like to give a verbal comment? Okay, thank you, sir. Misa Otani, would you like to give a verbal comment? Thank you. Okay, then we have Miss Melissa Von Voris from Senator Ihara's office. Melissa, would you like to give a verbal comment? If not, you can give me that thumbs down. Okay, thank you very much. I believe we've already heard from Michelle and Mike. So the next person I see is listed as RAO. Would you like to give a verbal comment?
No, thanks.
Okay, appreciate you being here for letting me know. Thank you. Next up, I see Representative Andrew Takuya Garrett. Sir, would you like to give a verbal comment? No, thank you. Okay. Moving on then, Robin Hensky. Robin, would you like to give a verbal comment?
No, I'm just from Councilor Mercado dos Santos Tam's office, and we're just here listening in. So no comment from me. Thank you.
Okay. I appreciate you being here and thank you for listening in. Okay, Sonia Bogdanovich. Sonia, would you like to give a verbal comment? And I hope I did your last name justice. Okay, hearing none, I will move on. We have someone registered simply as Sarah. Sarah, would you like to give a verbal comment? If so, you can come off mute. If not, you're welcome to give me a thumbs down and I will carry on down the list. Okay, hearing none. I believe, let's see, I know, Sydney, we heard from you last night, so I'm going to continue on. But if you have something to add, once I've gotten through the list, please just let us know. The next person I see is Stephanie. I don't know if it's pronounced Rat or Ratty, but Stephanie, would you like to give a verbal comment? Okay, thank you for letting me know. And let's see, the next person I see is Steve Holmes. Actually, there's two Steve Holmes listed. Don't know if that's two people with the same name, but would Steve Holmes like to give a verbal comment? Okay, gonna carry on. Terry Skillman. Terry, would you like to give a comment?
Yes, thank you for the opportunity to speak. I've been attending the meetings from, I don't know, I remember when the first one was up in Manoa when people in Manoa didn't agree with the whole proposal. And I've had contact with the stream all the way down from being up in Manoa. My daughter was at Noelani when the flood happened. I've worked in Hamilton Library, so I know what it was like to have to work with cleaning off all of the the maps, et cetera, that were damaged in the flood. I have my degrees in the music department. We were flooded a little bit on the side, and then paddling on the Alawai also. So I've got so many points all the way down the whole process with lots of comments. And I don't feel that any of the suggestions that we've come up with have been listened to. And that's really serious to me because there's so many kupuna, so many experienced people who've lived in the valley all the way down, and what they are saying has been shelved or, I don't know, put on the side. But I really feel like local voices need to matter. And yeah, it needs to matter. You need to listen. I do challenge the Army Corps to please join some canoe clubs. There's 13 canoe clubs on the Alawai Canal. And learn to paddle, see what it's like, and figure out, what it takes to support a Hawaii sports tradition. This is a unique Hawaii sports tradition, and it's getting literally moved up the bank more and making it more difficult to function. Yeah, please listen. That's all I can just plead with the powers that be to please listen. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Terry. We appreciate your comment. Okay, the next person I see on our list is Tom Heinrich. Tom, would you like to give a verbal comment? If so, come off mute. And if not, you can give me a thumbs down.
Thank you, Rhiannon. This is Tom Heinrich on behalf of Representative Della Bellotti, Makiki Tantless. We'll submit written comments by the January 8th, so just monitoring the meeting, and appreciate both last night's and tonight's meeting. Thank you.
Appreciate that very much, Tom. Thank you. Thank you for being here. Let's see, the next person I see is Virginia Murrison. Virginia, would you like to give a verbal comment? Okay, hearing nothing, I will move on. Let's see, the next name in the list is Winston Welch. Winston, would you like to give a verbal comment? Okay. And Zachary Hartley, would you like to register a verbal comment?
Hey, Rihanna, no real comment. Just appreciate the team's hard work and look forward to reading the final report. Thank you.
Okay, really appreciate that. Thank you very much. Let's see, I do see a hand up now, and we have gone through the entire list, at least as it displays on my end. So the hand is from Dave Watase. Dave, would you like to speak?
Thank you very much for the opportunity. Looks like we have a lot of time. What I would like to share with everybody is my experience. In 2015, basically, the previous project was at this stage, and the Army Corps had targeted my property in Palolo for a detention basin, which would require them to do eminent domain on my property. I had 45 days to give comment. They would not answer questions. It was just a one-way street. And then they would answer my questions in the final EIS. I didn't have an opportunity to talk to the Army Corps, whether or not to question their plan, to question whether there were any other alternatives. I think the draft EIS was over 2,000 pages, and I had 45 days to read it and to submit comments. And as I went through it, there were probably, 20 to 30 pages showing my property with a big detention basin, covering it. And what came to my mind was, how come nobody knocked on my door, gave me a phone call, and said if it was okay, right? And it's not that hard. So the question I have, oh, and by the way, in 2012, they rescoped the project, and they had a public comment, public engagement plan. And as I went through that plan, basically, it discussed the level of engagement with the community and key stakeholders. And I was basically a key stakeholders. They wanted my property. And basically it described one-on-one engagement. It described workshops where we could sit down with the Corps and discuss stuff, talk story. They get to know us, we get to know them. None of that happened. And I submitted 100 pages of alternatives, concerns, questions. In the final EIS, they basically said, my concerns were easily dismissed in a matter of sentences. And I spent hundreds of hours at that time, researching this stuff to give, good comments, not just the crazy kind of comments that, not in my backyard, I don't want it. I gave specific reasons. And my concern on this round, as an example, they've added Kaimaki High School's athletic field, to be used as a detention basin. Now, the Army Corps doesn't own that land. The city doesn't own the land. Did they bother to even contact the school and talk story with them, whether or not it's even doable? Did they talk to DOE? I don't know. I don't think they're on the distribution list. Okay, the other thing is, how about all the neighbors, adjacent to the athletic field in Kapahulu? One day they're going to wake up and find out, hey, this project has been approved. and there's going to be a 6-foot high concrete wall behind my house, right? I mean, the Corps knows already that if they do this plan, these guys are key stakeholders. They will induce flooding to these property owners. You know, this isn't federal land, it's not state land. These are all private properties, right? Same thing along the Manoa Palolo stream. They want to put an eye wall across Kamaki, across the stream, across Kamaki High School. You know, there's condos there, you know, property owners. Are they contacting those people directly? Or are they basically not going to find out until the final EIS comes out? You know, when we talk about not doing the same mistake, again, same thing with Quality Road, right? I mean, I don't think they've contacted anybody there. You know, yet this project will impact them. So what's the whole purpose of an impact statement if you don't address the impacts? Right? Or you just discount everything as, it's not important. This project is going to cause huge induced flooding to the extent where the previous project had gigantic flood pumps all over the place. On the golf course, there's a huge channel that Kapahulu Kaimuki dumps into, right? It called for a flood pump last time to pump the water above ground into the 4-foot wall at that time. Same thing at the end by the Waikiki Library. There was a huge pumping station there, 40 foot tall, right? To pump the water from Diamond Head side up into the canal above water. And they called for one at the end of University Avenue to pump the water into the wall system. This time, they don't need it. Where's all that water going? Your report says we're going to just deal with the induced flooding. So when you look at your little flood map, it shows everybody in blue but Waikiki. But I've also stated Waikiki will flood too because you're capping it off. It's just that your modeling or your computer doesn't show it. Either that or you're putting in the wrong kind of information. Right? We all know if you shut out our storm drainage and we have a little rain, doesn't even take a big rain, you know, we're going to flood. You know, so a lot of these property owners that's across Kamaki High School, across Manoa Stream, if you look there, some of them have access to the stream. And I don't know if it's their property or what, but they have gardens down there. There's banana trees, right? So they access the stream. They enjoy the stream. They enjoy the view. They have a view of Diamond Head. Okay? When it rains, the water drains naturally into the stream. But you're going to put up a solid wall, and I don't think there's going to be little pukas in it for their property to drain when it rains, because you can't have a flood wall that has pukas in it, holes, right? So I don't get it. These guys are all being impacted, and you're thinking that it's going to be okay. I'm telling you, it's not going to be okay. Every one of these guys are going to fight you tooth and nail. And all you have to do was fast forward your idea of, hey, I wonder if the public's going to accept this plan, right? And you don't do that. You just, doesn't matter if they accept it or not, you know, this is what we came up with. You know, the previous city council pig, Tommy Waters and Kobayashi and Taro Fukunaga, they saw what I'm just describing to you. And the city spent $700,000 to hire a local consultant, Oceanet, who, by the way, also did your hydraulic and hydrology study, which this plan is, based upon. Okay, so their engineering is good. They brought us into their office in small groups, okay, and talked story with us and went to several meetings, right? And engaged the community the way you're supposed to do it. And they devised a plan with engineering behind it and with a cost estimate from a tunnel contractor. The Army Corps basically dismissed it in 2 paragraphs in your current report. I think that's a shame. It's really a shame because I think the community would have been behind that particular alternative. And there's a bunch of other alternatives that I think that if you were listening, the community can get behind it. And the other big thing is ecosystem restoration needs to be a part of it. And it's really a small fraction of the cost to satisfy those folks that are really pushing it. Yes, it doesn't do the big storms, but it impacts us who see the smaller storms, that the more frequent storms, that the problems we see on an annual basis, right? So it's not too hard for you guys to say, you know what, even if it's coming from different, I don't know, areas of the Army Corps or different programs, combine it, go simultaneously together, because that's what it's going to take if you want this project to go forward. So
Thank you, Dave.
I'm against walls, and I think there's better alternatives that I've already submitted to you guys, and I hope you consider those. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dave. Yes, I do know you submitted your written comments last night and also your verbal last night. So we will make sure those are taken down and responded to. Thank you. Okay, we still have about 49 participants. I know I had come to one person earlier who said they would want to speak later. So if you have not spoken this evening and would like to give a verbal comment, please feel free to raise your hand. And it looks like CARES has their hand up again. Would you like to give another addition to your verbal comment?
Yes, thank you. I have another question or concern. So Angela Melody Young from CARES, Grassroots, so Community Advocacy Research Education Services, and we work with students in various schools to teach about advocacy, environmental impact, sustainability. And so this concern is about schools. I've got 2 concerns. So the first is about schools. During this season, the schools paddle in the Alawai to train. So how will this impact the school's trainings? And so there's going to be safety concerns about parking mitigation strategies, school buses, and DLNR is already in discussion about this. So perhaps there could be potentially a collaboration about this. And also in our sustainability and environmental impact work, we've worked with Genki balls, and Genki balls is a process of bioremediation technology of using living organisms to remove pollution, which is impacting nature. Organic compounds can be digested by microorganisms to consume and break down environmental pollution. The EM, effective microorganisms, is this thing that was invented and developed in Japan, and I think it's also patented. It's a patented design. And so data from the Genki Balls project is being worked with from the Hawaii State Department of Health and the City and County of Honolulu's Water Quality Lab, and organizations and schools also collaborate with Genki to embrace sustainability and to restore the health of our ecosystems here in Hawaii. So these are just 2 concerns that I've got. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that. And I do see, Sarah, that you have your hand up. Would you like to come off mute and give a verbal comment?
Yes, thank you very much. I am speaking on behalf of our canoe club. That is one of the canoe clubs along the Alawai Canal. We are very concerned about what will become of all of the canoe clubs that have homes along the Alawai for many decades. And we just hope that with the planning and the project upcoming, that you will seriously consider the faith of our canoe clubs there. Thank you.
Mahalo, Sarah. Appreciate your comment. Okay. Do we have anybody else who has not had a chance to give a verbal comment who would like to comment? I do still see a few folks who are dialed in only on audio who haven't come off mute. And again, I just want to let you know that we would love to hear from you. If you want to give a verbal comment, you will have to *6 to unmute yourself, and then make sure your physical phone is unmuted in order to give a comment if you want to do so. And if we've received all comments that folks want to give, then that's okay too. We just wanted to provide the time to make adequate availability for everyone's comment to be heard. Oh, and I do see a hand up. Ellen Watson, did you have something you wanted to add?
Thank you. Yes, I just wanted to say, I guess, to our city, to our mayor, that I know that he wants something to be done. And I know he seems very excited about that, given what happened in Lahaina. And so he's really wanting, it seems to me, to get something done so that nothing happens to Waikiki because he's the man in charge, right? And so I just wanted, I guess, to convey to the city and to the mayor that there's no right way to do the wrong thing, and that your community supported the swift tunnels of Oceanet. They supported removing albesias. They supported green restoration and stream dredging and stream cleanout and those other kinds of things. And I think that you really need to consider that, because the people that have spoken about that are the people that elected you. We want you to be our champion, but we want you to be our champion for things that make sense. And we don't want you to be pushing through or trying to go to the government and get 90% of the funding and all these things to build these terribly obstructive flood walls that aren't going to address what happens with sea level. They're not going to address what happens in a tsunami, even a small one. And they're going to intentionally flood Kapahulu, Morilili, and other places. And it's like those folks don't count. Those are the expendables so that you can save the hotels. It's like way wrong. So please don't do that. Please be our guy. We need you. And tell the Army Corps to come up with a different plan. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ellen. I do see a new hand up from Michelle Matson. Michelle, did you have something you wanted to add?
Yes, thank you so much. I totally strongly support Ellen Watson's comments. Curiously, wildfires have been highlighted as an emergency example to follow, but Keawe kindled transient campfires within Diamond Head's dry summer semi-wilderness characteristic of this national natural landmark and state historic monument have burned several acres already, and coupled with the high winds will whip wildfire around and down the promontory slopes through surrounding neighborhoods and public parks and straight into and through Waikiki. With the Alawai Canal in its current low structural configuration as the only barrier to wildfire that has been proven to be beyond the realm of human control. Therefore, we must get away from these excuses and get into the realities of what we must do to protect all our neighborhoods and surrounding communities, not just the Waikiki Golden Goose.
Thank you, Michelle. Okay, is there anybody else who has not had a chance to speak and give a verbal comment that would like to give one? Okay, I see a hand up from Kapua. Kapua, is there something you would like to add? Okay, perhaps the hand up was an error, so I'm sorry if I called on you and you didn't want to speak. Is there anyone else that we have not heard from who would like to give a comment? Kapua, your hand just showed up again. I don't know if you're having technical difficulty. Would you like to speak?
Yes, I don't know where I got cut off, but I am from Waianae, and I applaud all of you folks for staying engaged and getting engaged. I also support a lot of what has already been said, especially about these people are contributing their ike, their mana'o, and it seems a travesty that we have to wait for the final to see what our input, or let me say their input, how it was implemented. I appreciated when Mr. Watasi was saying that they had smaller groups so that we can understand why our contributions are inadequate. But paddling is a Hawaiian tradition and culture, and it is affecting the paddling. And our local people, our kama'aina, are more important than Waikiki. We need to recognize our value, because if we are not here, there's nobody that can support Waikiki. Waikiki is here because we are here. We are the reason that people come. But and perhaps I'm at the wrong meeting, but what really brought me to this meeting is when I see the Alawai Canal commercial, and it shows the two outlets. And the two outlets, in my mind, are necessary, and they have their challenges. I imagine I haven't gotten to that page in the EA to see it out of this almost 4,000 pages, and I'm not a technical person to see these things and understand these things. But to me, it's like, again, it's the economic wheel that reigns supreme over what happens here in Hawaii. And we need to let our legislators know, whether it be county, state, or federal, that the revenue is important. but our livelihood, our well-being, our families, our mo'o to come, that has a higher value. That is priceless. So please, Army Corps of Engineers, take heed to this community, what they're saying, and respond. Respond, implement their mana'o. Mahalo.
Mahalo kapua. Is there anyone else who we have not heard from who would like to give a verbal comment? Or anyone maybe that's joined us, a little late, maybe you had to work and you've just been able to join. Please, if you haven't had a chance, feel free to come off mute and give a verbal comment. And if you have joined us from just the telephone and can only hear us, then I would just like you to know that to give your comment, you will need to *6 to unmute yourself via the WebEx, and then make sure that your telephone that you're on is also unmuted for us to hear you. Sarah and Michelle, I see that both of you still have your hand up. Was there something else that you'd like to add, or was that just an artifact that your hand is up? Okay, I'm hearing nothing. I'm going to assume it was just accidentally left up from last time. Just looking to see if we have any other hands. Okay. Not seeing anybody. If everyone who's with us at this point has been able to give their comments either verbally or in writing, we want to thank you. We really appreciate your time, your effort, you sharing from your heart, from your knowledge and wisdom, and from your feelings. And so thank you very much. And just know we will remain until the end of the official comment time in case we have folks who are getting off of work or needed to put, kids to bed or things like that and didn't have a chance to join for the beginning. We will remain on just in case there's anyone else who would like to be heard who has not had their chance. But if you feel that you've shared what you need to and you want to drop off and take care of other things this evening that you need to, we completely respect and understand that. And thank you again for your time and wish you the happiest of holiday seasons for you and your family. I see Shar Ege, I hope I'm pronouncing your name right, and please forgive me if I'm not. Would you like to add something?
Yeah, will the recording or the written text be available on the website? Hello?
Yes,
Oh,
I believe
okay.
that's the intent.
Say
I believe we're still waiting for the Olelo recording from last night to be post-produced so that it can be put on the web page. But that is the intent, that the recordings and the transcripts will be posted.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
You're most welcome. And Brian, I see that you're off mute. Is there a verbal comment you'd like to give?
No, I was just confirming the information about what was going to be posted on the website, the link to Olelo. I'm actually going to add a link to the Olelo website And I think it looks like Olelo's already posted times of when they're gonna broadcast last night's meetings. We just don't have the recording yet. Thanks, Rhiannon.
Thank you, Brian. Appreciate that. Thank you for the link. So again, the team representing the City and County of Honolulu and the Corps will remain until the official end of the period for collecting verbal comments, which is 8:30. However, if you've joined and you have provided your feedback, either written, verbal, or both, and don't have anything to add, again, feel free. You can drop off and have any needs for your family or home for this evening met. And we thank you again very much for joining us and wish you the happiest of holidays. And if you want to remain on with us to see if we have any new participants join late or anyone else who wants to add anything, then that's we're happy with that too. But we will kind of remain in listening mode and monitoring to see if anyone else joins or wants to add anything. I do think I see a few names that I may not have called earlier, and I'm not sure if you're on audio only. I see Greg Sugawa. I just want to recognize you, and if you would like to give a verbal comment, you are welcome to come off mute. Thank you, Greg. And I also see Manuel Huloloya. Welcome. If I didn't call your name earlier,